What's good, everybody? I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day today. It's DM Gaming, y'all, and just finished watching a interview between Sports Gamers Online and Clint Oldenburg of EA Sports. And the title of today's video, or session rather, is why the Pro Bowl is not in Madden, because this is something that a lot of people wanted to know, and it's covered in this interview. But first, I want to hint on some stuff that he talked about in the interview. First of all, as far as franchise mode, y'all, there's nothing new coming to franchise mode. We know that. However, Clint Oldenburg did say that there would be live. Okay, so for Madden 17, they had weekly updates to the commentary for Play Now, as well as I want to say online mode or something to that effect. But the live commentary is coming to franchise mode now. And so Clint Oldenburg said that there will be weekly live updates for the commentary in franchise mode now. So it would be built more accustomed to franchise mode, which is pretty cool because the commentary in franchise mode does get pretty dry sometimes. Okay. But now to the meat and potatoes, because I think this is what stood out in the interview the most. Aside from him basically saying that, there's nothing new to franchise mode, but there will be in the future. But this explains several things that he talked about. Why there's no Pro Bowl in Madden, as well as like mouthpieces. And this is what I alluded to, and this is what I kind of told people. When they make these games, the reason why they can't put everything that we want in the game is because when they make a game, they only have so much memory to work with. So when you have cutscenes and things of that nature in the game, it takes away from the memory. But this is surprising to me, and this is why I'm covering it, because he said the reason why we don't have the Pro Bowl in Madden is because when you put all 32 teams' helmets on in one thing on the field, along with the Pro Bowl special uniforms, they don't have enough graphics memory to do that. To make that make sense for the general populace. When you're playing a game of Madden, you only have two helmets. You have the home team's helmets and the away team's helmets. So for anything extra that you add, it's going to take up more and more memory. And so when you're playing the Pro Bowl, essentially you have 32 different helmets, because you're pretty much going to have one person from every team in the Pro Bowl. And so, with that being the case, each time you have to put in a different helmet, it takes up memory, as well as the logos, because the logos are on their jerseys as well. And then the Pro Bowl jerseys themselves, it takes up memory. Now, when he explained that, it makes sense because I understand that's how video games work. That's why you can never have a game that has everything everybody wants, because they just don't have the memory. Perhaps in online games, games that are strictly online, like Destiny, for instance, you could add those kinds of things because you're not so much bound to memory of the console in a sense, but it still exists. Now, what's interesting to me is that you can't do that with PlayStation 4, but you could do it with PlayStation 2 and 3. Surprising. And I know what people are saying that. But the answer to that is, well, think about this. People want graphics to increase. Anytime the graphics get better and they add different textures and things like that into the game, it takes away from the graphical memory that is in the game. You see what I'm saying? We want more coaches like me, for instance. I'll use myself as an example. I want live actual players on the sidelines. Well, in order for them to do that, it's going to take away from graphical memory, which can affect the way that the game looks and things of that nature. So, take it with a grain of salt, but it surprised me that with us having PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones, that they aren't able to have more graphical memory to add something like the Pro Bowl into the game. And I know what people are going to say. Well, if we didn't have long shot, could they have potentially put that in the game? And the answer is no, they couldn't. It's not because they have a different mode in the game. What graphical memory represents is for each individual game, there's so much like if I have a game going on, in that particular game, there's graphical memory. There's only so much you can add into that game. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't have anything to do with it doesn't have anything to do with the entirety of the game, like different game modes and stuff like that. That operates off of a different system. It's talking about for the individual game. Like if I was to go into a play now game and play Cowboys versus Redskins, there is graphical memory in that particular game, and that's where there are limits. Now, like I said, it just surprised me that would be an issue with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. However, thinking about that, I wonder if they would have been able to do it with the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. And the answer to those questions are more than likely yes, they probably could. However, both Sony and Microsoft makes them make games to fit regular PlayStation 4 and regular Xbox One. Why? So they don't lose people, like they don't lose customers. And I think that's bogus. I think that's retarded, because if I'm paying extra money for an extra console, I should have some exclusivity for that console. Now, remember what we talked about. Remember what I talked about with the Xbox One X and saying that, if this game console, all the PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X is graphics upgrade. That's it. At the time the PS4 Pro came out, it was the most powerful console. Xbox One X is going to come out, it's going to be the most powerful console. But it means a D. You get what I'm saying? I don't want to say it because y'all know we don't cuss. But it means nothing. It means a D. Because all you're getting is a graphics upgrade. Now, had Xbox and Microsoft and Sony said, hey, give the developers, because the developers would like to do this. But they're limiting the power that the developers want to do by saying you have to make this game fit regular Xbox One and regular PlayStation 4. If they gave them the freedom, then we could see EA go in and add a Pro Bowl for the Xbox One X version or the PlayStation 4 Pro version, because those consoles have more memory to work with, But you don't see that because, like I said, they don't want, that's why whenever you seen PlayStation 2, say for instance PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, that's why you saw different versions of the game or things that was in one console that wasn't in the other, because they were able to put more into the more powerful console, and because the developer or the console maker, Sony and Microsoft, said that, hey, it's okay to make a different version of the game for this other console. However, with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, that's not the case. So the reason we're not seeing more in our games when you have the, say, PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X is because Sony and Microsoft is limiting what the developers are able to do, simply because they don't want to upset the fan base, because people are going to be real upset if you say, well, you can create a different version of this game for this console, because they want to keep people happy. Hey, guess what? If you get an Xbox One X, you'll still be able to play the same games. Essentially, that's why they're doing it. And then not to mention, too, from the developer standpoint, they would probably charge a little bit more for the game. So to keep the games at the same price, they make it to where when they make those games, they have to make them to fit all the entire spectrum. So when you're getting an Xbox One X, and like me, I have a PlayStation 4 Pro, you're not, until they lift that limitation, you're never going to see what that console can really do, aside from being able to adjust the resolution and frame rate. But with these consoles, there should be, extra stuff added into these games. And I would beg to differ. And I'm going to tweet Clint Oldenburg and asked him if would they be able to add it, if they could, or would the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X, does it have that memory space to sustain a Pro Bowl in the game if, Microsoft and Sony so allowed them to do that? Because that's why they can't. And that's why we don't see a Pro Bowl. That's why we don't see mouthpieces in the game as well, because of that reason. I know what you're saying. Well, mouthpieces is just like adding sleeves or things of that nature. And that's, like I said, another reason why because that's just one extra thing that they would have to add to the game. And on top of that, yeah, mouthpieces are cool, but how often do you see your player, saying with the mouthpiece and stuff like that? And I know people saying, well, NBA Live is able to do it or NBA 2K is able to do it, but you have to look at it like this. In those games, there's only 10 people on the court at a time. So there's not as many players. So you could do a little bit more as far as accessories and things of that nature. But you can't do that when you got 22 people on the field. It takes up more memory. Yes, Madden takes up more memory than an NBA game. That's why you're kind of able to see a little bit more stuff in the NBA games than you are in Madden as well. But with the Frostbite engine, it does, it has, the engine supports a greater graphical fidelity and memory, so they're able to put a little bit more into the game. But the console itself is limited, in what you can do on it. So that's why we haven't seen the Pro Bowl. And I know what people are saying, but wasn't the PlayStation 3 more powerful? I mean, less powerful than the PlayStation 4? Yes, it was, but you got to think of the graphic upgrade that came with the PlayStation 4. And then with the Pro and the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X, like I said, Sony and Microsoft is making them make those games to fit. Basically they're saying, we don't want a special version for these games. When you make a game, it needs to be able to fit all of the Xbox platforms, all of the PlayStation platforms. So that's why we're not seeing like separation between the two as far as PlayStation, even PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4. That's why you're not seeing different features in the games like we did previously, where essentially you had the same game, but there was different stuff that could be added into it. For instance, in Madden on PlayStation 3, you had the combine and stuff like that. You didn't have it on the PlayStation 2 version. You get what I'm saying? Something like that. So all you're getting with these next generation consoles or these upgraded consoles is upgraded graphics. So a lot of people, so I'm going to tell y'all this, if you're big on graphics, then yes, it's worth it, because, and let me be real, 4K is not where it's at. When you're looking at those 4K resolutions, what's making that resolution stand out is not the 4K. It's the HDR, the high dynamic resolution. That's what makes the blacks blackers, the whites whiters. That's what gives the colors, the vibrance and stuff like that. I was playing on PlayStation 4 on 2K and the HDR was off and the picture looked bland. It looked faded kind of. I was like, no, something's wrong with this resolution. Restarted the game, HDR kicked in, and you could tell a huge difference in the game because of the HDR. So 4K, between 1080p and 4K, you'll see a little bit of difference, a little bit more sharpness in the image and things of that nature. But as far as the picture looking good with the colors and shadings and stuff like that, that's HDR, which is a component of 4K. But still, it's HDR. That's what makes those images pop. And so when you're going to the upgraded consoles, that's all you're getting with these games is upgraded graphics, which it does look nice. But at the same time, if I'm paying, like for the Xbox One X, $500 and the PlayStation 4 Pro paying $400, which was the same price of those consoles at launch regular, like the regular PlayStation 4 was $399, regular Xbox One was what, $499 or whatever the case may be. You expect to have more in your games besides just a graphical upgrade. And like I said, too, you do have a more stable frame rate, which in some games, frame rate really does matter. In fighting games, frame rate is optimal. In shooting games, it's very important. Sports games, yeah, that's what adds to that fluidity and stuff like that. That's why Madden 18 looks so fluid on the Xbox One X that you're seeing from E3, because that frame rate, it's able to sustain a high frame rate. So all in all, y'all, that's why the Pro Bowl isn't in the game and why we probably won't see it until perhaps next generation consoles come out. So don't get used to seeing that in Madden anytime soon again, which is probably why we don't see the Senior Bowl as well in the draft, because they would have to put different helmets unless they did it. Well, they could do that, but they probably don't have the graphical memory for that either. All in all, y'all, that's all I got for right now. Like I said, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And we signing off like we sign off all the time. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Comment down below. Till next time, y'all, and God bless.